Welcome to Behind the Audition podcast with your host, Curt Hilton. Listen in on interviews with voiceovers, filmmakers, producers, animators, and much more. Curt, a voice actor himself, will give insider tips to the business, talk with guests about how they got into the business, and be sure to stay tuned to the end of the podcast when he challenges his guests with a pop-up audition. Now it's time for Behind the Audition podcast. Here's Curt Hilton.
Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Audition podcast. On this episode, I spoke to the amazing BZ Cullins. We talked about how I got into the VO business, being part of SAG-AFTRA, advice for those wanting to get into the business, and I asked him if it was harder to get jobs having that deep voice of his. So sit back and enjoy another episode of Behind the Audition podcast. All right, welcome to the show, the one, the only, the man himself, BZ Cullins. How are you doing today?
Amazingly amazing. If I was any better, I'd need a clone.
So how are things in Vegas? I'm first of all, I'm extremely jealous. You said Vegas earlier. We were talking before the show. That must be awesome.
It's cool, man. The weather is warming up, but the thing here in Vegas, man, is the extremes. So when it gets warm, it's warm. So we're really, as it sits right now, we're kicking the 90s.
Wow. So yeah, that's a big difference. We're in the 70s, but we just got over the whole allergy season where it looks like Big Bird blew up all over the car, literally just everything yellow. And so now, like I was telling you before, my left eye, I keep winking because I just went outside for a little bit. Now it looks like I got the itch going on. But thank you for being on the show. And I guess get the show started off. When you first got into the world of voice acting, what was the first thing you did?
Oh man, the craziest thing was I discovered a gentleman named Rodney Salisbury, and I hadn't even thought of getting into voiceover. A friend of mine, my cousin and I went to a bookstore in LA called Samuel French, which was where all the actors went to get all their source material, and we saw that he had a book, just launched a book. And we immediately noticed and took notice of it because my family on my mother's side is Salisbury. So I'm like, wow, let me go ahead and see what voiceover is about. And that's what actually started me off.
Yeah, you got
the whole journey.
You got one of the most distinctive voices. When I first came across you on social media, like most voice actors do, you just have that really cool, distinctive voice. Having that deep of a voice, is it hard to get other jobs besides deep voices when having a deep voice?
No, because when it comes down to this thing in voiceover, there are lots of talented individuals who have a repertoire of voices. I'm not one of those dudes. Mm-hmm. But I do have a couple of characters that take me out of my natural range. But no, it's not hard to get work. If you have Thunder Throat, there's, with characters that I create, I give them names. So I have one character named Tone. He's from New York. And so dude is, he goes by the name of Christian Young, but his initials are CY. We can't see why he won't win. Now, that's way out of where I naturally live.
Wow.
But that was something that worked for a Red Bull project that I did.
That's very cool. And when you first started, what was the first thing? Did you focus on buying a booth, or was it a microphone, or is it a mixer? What was your first big purchase that you wanted to focus on?
Well, first big purchase, and I know this is probably not a popular answer, training.
Wow. No, that's a great answer. I guarantee a lot of people would be like, great answer. That's amazing.
That was my first investment when it came to voiceover, because I found a coach here in Vegas, but I didn't immediately go to her. I immediately started taking acting classes before going into voiceover, because most people aren't even aware, because voiceover is voice acting. Voiceover is just, there's two sides of the acting coin. You have the on camera and you have voiceover. With on camera and stage performance, you have to remember and act. With voiceover, you have to read and act, but you don't get away from acting. So the first investment I made in myself venturing into voiceover was taking acting classes first.
Yeah, that's actually something a lot of people don't say. They'll say I bought the most expensive microphone, or I actually treated my room, or I got the biggest booth and everything.
Right.
And then they get in the booth and they start recording, and come to find out they have a good voice, but they can't act. And there are friends that want to get into this. They think it's easy to just read a script and because they have a good voice, but your voice doesn't show how that character might come off in the acting. And I think what you said was perfect, because a lot of us, even myself, working with a voice coach, I thought I nailed an audition, and she'll come back and be like, it sounded too much like you're reading it, or it didn't sound like the character, or, and that's, I think coaching is needed, even if you're winning Oscars, you know what I mean? I think everybody should have a coach to rely on that's honest and not just after your money. What do you think?
Well, I've been in voiceover going on 2 decades, and I still have coaches. As a matter of fact, I'm studying, trailers and promo under Richard Redfield. I connect with, Brent Allen Hagel, and take workshops with him. And when it comes to this entertainment thing, it doesn't matter what format you're in. You can never stop learning. You can always improve. And the moment that you come to this thing that I don't need any classes, or I don't need to learn anything from anybody, you're doomed to fail yourself, because we don't always all have it. It's my understanding, I believe, from what I heard, even Sean Connery still had a coach.
He still has a coach. He still had a coach before. Towards the end, he still had a coach.
Before he passed, my understanding was that there was someone that he was studying with. So, and that dude, 40, 50 years in the game. Again, you can never stop learning. It's no different than life. It's an ongoing learning process. I thought I was a pretty dope promo trailer voice, and then I got my butt handed to me, a little bit here and there when it came down to it. I'm like, oh, well, wait a minute. Okay, I get it. I totally get it. And a lot of people don't even understand it. I'm a coach myself.
Wow.
Singers get voiceover naturally. They don't understand why they get it. But the primary reason that singers get voiceover naturally is because in voiceover, there's a musicality and tonality to it. Talking is actually musical, because we don't just speak in, a straight line. We speak in notes. The highs are highs and the lows are lows. So we even speak in music notes, but singers just get it. They just don't understand why. So when I'm coaching singers, I just teach them why they're getting it, so they can continue to repeat the performance, and they crush it in voiceover. A lot of voice actors that are out there are singers. A lot of people aren't aware of them, but a lot of those very well paid and prominent voice actors are singers.
Wow, that's very good to know. And as far as your first project, what was your first project that you landed?
Oh man, you're trying to take me back almost 2 decades, dude.
Yeah.
The first project that I landed.
The one you landed, you're just like, oh my gosh, I did it. I got a good role that I'm excited about. That first role that you're excited about.
The first role that I was excited about, I got little small things here and there, a real estate video here, for somebody who knew somebody. But the first major one was that really hit home was doing Dora the Explorer read-along books for Nickelodeon.
Wow.
And at the time, my daughter was like maybe 4, and she was the biggest Dora fan. So when I'm like, hey, Dad's going to be King Juan el Bobo, she lost it. That is what it's all about right there.
Wow. That's very cool. And, looks like you're part of SAG-AFTRA here. For those voice actors wanting to get into SAG-AFTRA, tell us about what that process is like.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you what my process was like. Now, my process is significantly different than practically anyone else's that you're going to hear. When I joined the union, I initially joined under AFTRA. which was, had SAG and AFTRA were two different unions. They were sister unions. I joined, and then the next year they merged, and I was grandfathered into SAG.
Wow.
When the unions merged. Now, before that happened, there were tons of voiceover talents who were joining SAG and AFTRA separately, because a lot of animation film falls under SAG,
Right.
while everything else fell under AFTRA, whether it was TV and radio. So they had both cards. For me, I got grandfathered into the union when it merged. So again, my situation was a little bit different. Nowadays, and if I'm not mistaken, there's still the same process. Either a producer has to love you so much, they sign you on to the project, which is called a Taft-Hartley, or you have to get 3 vouchers working on union projects.
Wow. So it's just like it sounds like the process itself is it, for somebody who's not in there, is it very rewarding being part of SAG-AFTRA?
Well, I mean, of course, it's all dependent on, your workflow. If
Right.
you're an individual who's got a good workflow, a good workload, and you're getting, union work, then yeah, absolutely. If you're an individual who is, you'll get a union job every now and again, possibly not. Because the thing is, once you join the union, you can only do union work.
Right.
And if the union work is not coming at a hearty rate, it's going to it's going to hurt you.
Right.
Because when you were working non-union, you were getting all those non-union checks.
Right.
But when you get the right job, if it's a union gig, you get the right job. And all it takes is just one. You
Right.
get the right job. Oh boy, those residuals are a doozy.
Yeah, that's good to know, because I'm not part of that. And for those outside the SAG-AFTRA, you seeing those, it's like, I made it, or is it like, yeah, you're part of it, but just because you're part of it doesn't mean you've made it. And that's good to hear. You know
No.
what I mean? And that's a good thing for those like myself to who are building a brand, who have interest in that, and that's great to talk to somebody who's in it. And going back to building your brand, you have that really cool, like every time I go to your social media site, you have that really cool brand. What would you tell somebody when to build a brand? What is it about, being a coach and building a brand? What would one have to do to really, I guess, show those, here's what you need to do to build your brand? How would you coach somebody to do that?
Well, something, man, I had to do it by trial and error. Again, back in the day, there weren't really many brand marketing coaches or brand marketing entities out there like there are now, especially for this field.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe there's a gentleman out there by the name of Corey Disson.
Yes.
He's one, I guess he's at the forefront of it for marketing, especially for voiceover talents. For me, my thing was, okay, something, I'm BZ. This is what I do. I do voice. So you go along, anything social media bound, anything internet bound, everything is BZ the voice. You can't lose me. If you lose me, something is wrong. Everything is BZ the voice. So that's my brand.
Right.
So my website, bzthevoice.com, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, everything is BZ the voice. So if you're looking for me, you will find me. I would advise anyone who's out there looking to market themselves and brand themselves, what is it about you that stands out that will have somebody pay attention to you? Fortunately for me, it is the fact that my voice sits in the bass baritone range, and this is what it is that I do. It's cool to, having thunder throat is cool, having an arsenal of voices is cool. But what are you going to do with it? How are you going to push it out there for people to understand what you're doing, and get your point across to let them know, hey, look, man, I voice this promo, I voice this trailer, I voice that product, I voice that good, I voice that service, I voice that event. oh wow, this dude does voice stuff.
That's awesome. And so I see you do a lot of character work. Do you prefer promos or characters? Which one if you had your choice, which one would you rather do?
My ultimately my thing is movie trailers and TV promos. I
Okay.
mean, that's literally that's my thing. And there's several gentlemen out there who have the same goals. We all have that same goal. Because when it comes to it, you know, especially for movie trailers, that's the upper echelon of voiceover.
Right.
That's the top tier.
Right.
And it's the toughest nut to crack. There are some people who some way, somehow, you know, wind up getting in there,
Yeah.
and it's just a matter of, you know, hey, look, all the best to you. So some people will get it, some people won't. Some people it takes a little bit more time. It's a little bit of a harder process. But dude, I say stick with it, you know, because if it's what you love, you'll just go ahead and do whatever it takes. Now you can either be interested in it or you can be committed to it. And there's
Right.
a difference between the two.
Right. And you have that, you do have that great promotional movie trailer voice. I've tried doing those for demos. I don't have the movie trailer voice. I guess the only thing I'd be close to like a Disney. So,
Dude,
you
there's a
know,
mark there. The thing is a lot of people don't get it. There's a market for everybody.
yeah.
And dude, yeah, you can, if you can pull off Disney trailers, you can pull off Disney trailers, but you
Yeah.
can do trailers.
Yeah. I think those are always cool. And but like there are a select few, and you are definitely one for like movie trailers that and Brent has that great movie trailer voice too.
Yep.
Um you know, and I even excuse me, I had Stefan Johnson on here and I just saw
Right.
him on Bali. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, that's what you couldn't tell us. But you know, he
Yeah.
has that distinctive voice. I was like, oh my gosh, he landed that one. So I think picking your niche is very important, and you have those what two or three that you really focus on, instead of doing like book narration or e-learning, what you know, which are good money, but you have those ones where like, nope, I'm sticking to this, and that's what works for you.
You know what? Let me just take a brief moment and big up Stefan for coming as far as he's come. The dude decided to market himself as a voiceover talent, true. But he marketed himself as a foodie
Yeah.
and put himself out there on TikTok, exploded, and his voiceover career exploded on top of that. Now, mind you, he's a talented dude. Not only is he, you know, a great voiceover talent, Stefan is also a singer.
Yeah. I didn't know
And
that.
he's also a musician. Absolutely. He's also a musician. Again, a lot of people are singers.
Yep.
Stefan gets it.
Yep.
So, yeah, he promoted himself as a foodie. He made these crazy videos that took off, but he took that and he used that and marketed himself furthermore using that big boomy bassy voice that he has.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, again, he's a super talented kid.
Yep.
So again, big ups to you, Stefan, baby, bro. You know I ain't got nothing but love for you.
Yeah, he could be a comedian too. I mean, I will watch his TikTok videos. And speaking of singers, you know, I have Melissa Medina on here. She's a singer too, a fantastic singer. And I mean, there are people that when I talk to them, you're a singer. That would be amazing, to be an amazing voice actor and a singer on top of that. I mean, that's like the best of the best. So I
Absolutely.
want to give a shout out to you. This is one thing I'm going to give a shout out to you. I love your positivity, your motivation that you bring on social media. We need more of it in the world today. You do that. You get on there and you're very uplifting. So I just want to give you a shout out. You're giving shout outs, but I want to say thank you to you for your positivity. I love to have positive people on here. So thank you for those posts that you do.
My man, bless you. I sincerely appreciate that, dude. You know, my thing is every morning, and these are the affirmations for me. Um, let me be a blessing to someone, whether I realize I'm being a blessing to them or not, and put 3 smiles on faces today. Minimum of 3 smiles on faces. Whether it's on if it has something to do with whether I post it or if I'm actually speaking with somebody, at least 3 smiles every day.
I've heard that somewhere. Where's that at? I've heard that in life somewhere, because I was in the banking world many moons ago,
Mhm.
and I would have people coming upset, and my rule was, if I make 3 people laugh, I did my job today. Is that a
Yeah.
saying somewhere? Because I thought I've heard that, and that's amazing.
It very well could be, dude. And I may have run across it, but I made it, made it my mantra. Like even in going through the drive-through, and people are like, "Is there anything else?" I'll be like, "Yeah, a loan for $20,000," and then you hear them over the intercom laughing and go, "Man, if I only had it, I make certain that at least you got half of it." And then there's a conversation over the intercom. When I pull up to the window, they're laughing, they're smiling, because these people have to deal with people
Yeah.
all day, every day.
Right.
And all it takes is one individual to come in there and drain all of their positive energy. So we need to fill up people's love cups.
Right. Right. I love it. And speaking of TikTok and stuff that we were talking about earlier with Stefan, what's your thoughts of TikTok? I think it's great. You've actually do a fun video I put on there. And what are your thoughts of TikTok and voiceover nowadays? I do see there's actually people auditioning for jobs now on TikTok. Saturday Morning TV is doing it with Robo Zeta. There's a couple other ones. They're going to come out for auditions. You're actually putting yourself out there. What are your thoughts of TikTok and voiceover?
That's the reason that I joined it, was to put myself out for voiceover. I'm like, you know what? I avoided TikTok for the longest time. And I'm like, you know something, man, I cannot limit myself when it comes to this thing, because even though I work with multiple agents, I have a manager, I'm like, when all is said and done, we still have to pimp ourselves out. We still have to put ourselves out there and let people out there know that we exist. TikTok's audience is enormous. And you never know, again, just like Stefan, you never know who's watching what, who's out there, who's going to catch what it is that you're doing. And I'm like, you know something, I'll just go ahead and use TikTok as you like Facebook. I usually use it as a motivational tool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I'm going to go ahead and use like Instagram and Twitter and TikTok as promotional tools.
Wow.
But when all is said and done, I still can't stay away from motivational. So let me just go ahead and just do what it is that I do best and use all of them for the same thing.
I love it. Keep doing it, because I love it. I love seeing it and hearing it. I think people need, for those that are having those bad days, for those who might not be going far as they want to in this, just keep at it, keep striving
Yeah.
at it. If you give up on yourself. Nobody becomes big overnight. It takes many, 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 many years.
Yes.
And there's one
Yes,
thing
it
I want to
does.
talk about in Blackest Night. Can you talk a little bit about it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So for those of who are unaware, I released a film earlier this year. It's on YouTube now. It's called In Brightest Day Off.
Mm-hmm.
And it's based on the DC comic book character, the Green Lantern, and
Mm-hmm.
the specifically John Stewart.
Mm-hmm.
The reason that even came about is because, John Stewart became popular with the Justice League cartoon on Cartoon Network back in like 2000.
Mm-hmm.
Now, mind you, most people aren't even aware of this, but John Stewart turns 50 this year.
Wow.
Most people weren't even aware of this dude's existence.
Wow.
So he's also DC Comics' first Black superhero.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So when I first saw that thing, I'm like, oh man, I want to voice that dude.
Yeah.
Then they changed his look. I'm like,
Yeah.
wait a minute. That's kind of my look. I kind of sound like the dude. I kind of look like the dude.
Yeah.
Let's just go ahead and be the dude.
That's awesome.
So I wrote that first film. We shot it, got it released, and now we have a sequel to it, which is now titled In Blackest Night Out. Now, for those comic book heads that are out there, they'll know a common theme between the titles of both of these films, which is they're based off of the Green Lantern oath.
Yeah.
So In Blackest Night Out is just like In Brightest Day Off, is a different type of fan film. My fan films are a day in the life fan film.
Mm-hmm.
When you think of fan films, most people immediately start thinking of shoot 'em up, action, powers, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Both of my films are not along those streams. My films are a day in the life of these heroes living everyday life.
Right.
And In Blackest Night takes John Stewart, and John Stewart is going to hang out with some other Green Lanterns and kick it. They're not going out intergalactic shoot 'em up. They're kicking it.
That is awesome. I'm excited to see it, and I'll be sure to share it in the links. I think it's good that we do have more diversity in the comic book world. You know, hearing that story and hearing about it. I became a huge fan of Spider-Verse. I think that's probably one of my, like, the artwork, the characters, and just seeing that come into the comic book world. The only thing, I don't know about you, the only thing I'm not a big fan of, and you know, some people might be like, oh my gosh, whatever. Why do because you said no shoot 'em up. Why do comic stories now have to be rated R? You know what I'm saying? Like the new, the new Justice League. I wasn't a fan of it. You know, I just wasn't. I just don't know why Batman's got to drop the F-bombs and it's got to be too violent. You know what I mean?
No, you're absolutely right, man. And I wholeheartedly agree. It's not necessary. And on top of that, you know, being a comic book head, you know, and doing the films that I'm doing, the one thing I know about comic book heads is that when we see the live action version of our comics, we want them to stick to the source material as closely as possible. And a lot of these movies, even though they're making big money, they got this incredible CGI, they're still sort of kind of swaying away from original source material and not sticking to the lore. Like my favorite is Silver Surfer.
Oh man, that's old school too.
When the Fantastic Four movie came out, Silver Surfer, I was all over it. However, I was perturbed because there were several things that were off kilter in regards to the Silver Surfer. I'm like, nah, I know the Silver Surfer better than that, and that is not the case.
Right.
And the director himself, Tim Story, this is my story. This is how I'm going to tell it. Well, you just go ahead and you do that.
Right.
Because I'm not going to complain about it. I love the fact that it happened. However, this is why I'm also doing this, because I'm going to tell the stories according to source material and make certain that comic book heads are happy.
Right.
So, like he said, I'm going to tell my story. Well, I'm going to go ahead and tell the story.
Right. I like it. You know, and see, I grew up in I'm 45. I grew up in the Star Wars days, and you know, the old school cartoons. And there was no really bad things. You know, when you have kids, you got to pre-screen these things nowadays, and then you got to tell them, well, you can't watch Batman or Superman. Why? You just can't watch it. So, and I hope that, like I said, it changes a little bit, or at least, because I don't want to. I mean, cartoons aren't, you know, they're great, but it's cool to see them being real. So, wouldn't you agree to that?
Yeah, and see, and even so, like for my films, man, no, there's not going to be any cursing. No, there's not going to be anything explicit. We're actually literally putting together a genuine soundtrack for this film. I'm not allowing foul language even in the music, let alone on my film.
Right.
So yeah, it's going to be kid friendly. It's going to be adult friendly. It's going to be Christian friendly. All of that. Anybody and everybody can be able to relate to it, because even me personally, in my own personal life and in my professional life, I do not use profanity. I will not. I don't audition for projects with profanity. My agents know it. My manager knows it. If they want me to audition, I will edit it. If the CD doesn't like it or the producer doesn't like it, then it's not for me.
Good for you. That's true to yourself.
And I'm absolutely fine with that. I'm fine with that.
That's good. That's, you know, and that's great, being true to yourself and staying, you know, in that. And that's because there are some voice actors that will do things just to land a job. And, you know,
absolutely.
That kind of goes to my next question. What would you like to see in the change in the voiceover world? Mine would be for less on-screen actors to get voiceover jobs, but what would be some that you like to see change?
Well, it's actually changing now, man. It's happening, you know. For a long time there, and it's not just in voiceover, it's also in Hollywood when we're talking about diversity and inclusion. And you know, the thing is there for a very, very long time, you know, the African American community, we're like, hey, look, man, just give us a shot at the audition. No, we're not saying, book us. The thing about fairness, and most people aren't even aware, and I hope that I do make you aware. People base fairness on outcome. Fairness is not based on outcome. Fairness is based on opportunity.
Right.
So what we want is we just want a shot. And so, but now, that's actually turning around for the better, and it's cool. It really is. Um, the whole celebrities coming in to, do voiceover work. I'm like, yeah, I understand, especially with the animated features, they want to have some star power so that they can sell tickets, because
Mhm.
that's for all intents and purposes, especially with the animated features, that's the end game, is to sell
Mhm.
tickets. Now, on the Justice League cartoons, like way back when, they had a ton of acting guest stars on that cartoon. And I
That's
find
yeah,
myself listening and guessing, who is that? Oh, that's Powers Booth, who's the
right,
voice of Gorilla Grodd. Oh,
right,
wait a minute, that's Tim Daly. Oh,
yeah,
snap. It's just like, that's LeVar Burton. Oh, wait a minute, that's Michael Dorn.
right.
Worf from Star Trek. So, you know, I would listen and listen, and then I'd watch the credits, and oh, Ron Perlman was Lobo.
Yeah, that is awesome.
Ron
It
Perlman was Vincent from Beauty and the Beast and Hellboy, and he was on Blade. And I'm like, okay, they bring now he's got this big, rich texture to his voice. Same
yeah.
thing with Clancy Brown, who was the Kurgan in Highlander.
Mm-hmm.
He's what Mr. Krabs from
Yeah,
SpongeBob, and he
SpongeBob.
was
Yep.
Lex Luthor. Yeah, and he's Lex Luthor. So, and that's just where we are, dude.
I
They
think
need
it's
star power.
and I think it's cool. But see, that's what I loved about the cartoons and animation back in the day. You didn't know who these actors. You know the voice, but then it became the mysterious who is that voice to, oh, that's so and so in that big movie, or it's so and so in that big movie.
Right,
And it's
right.
I guess it turned into what big voice can we hire for this role. But that's good to hear from you. And
Yeah.
it's time to have some fun. You ready for the audition challenge?
I didn't even expect it.
Yeah, man. It's time for the audition challenge. So I sent you the script, and whenever you're ready, do any voice that you want to. I know you'll probably want to do your movie trailer voice that you're so good at, and go ahead and take away when you're ready.
Got it. Coming this fall. You've asked for it, and it's here this time. It's gonna cost you. The all-new Z Cavaricci with full tight roll, coming to a mall near you.
Oh, how cool would it be to have some Z Cavaricci's pants now? You remember
Dude,
those?
you took it to Z Cavaricci, bro.
Oh, see, when I write the copy, I got to make sure I got to do something fun, a little bit old school. You know what I mean?
Talk about old school, dude. Wow, you
Bringing
took
it
it
back
there.
to back to J. Crew and merry-go-round days. You know what I mean? On Friday nights and Sabroros and all that stuff.
My goodness, man. Wow, that is
Oh,
insane.
before I let you go, what
Yep.
advice would you give? It's a cliche question, but what advice? And it's even for myself, for
Yep.
those getting into the world of voice acting. I always ask every single guest, what do you recommend?
Absolutely.
What do you recommend
Um,
for those wanting to make it in this world? What do you recommend?
okay, so this is how it works. And I stand by this. And it's not just voiceover. It's in anything that you decide that you want to exhibit your gifts, because we all have gifts and talents. Um, so if you want to exhibit your gifts, in arts and entertainment, whatever the case may be, make certain that you understand that just like life, this thing is a crapshoot. We're not guaranteed anything. We're not promised anything. Just because my voice lives where it lives, I'm not guaranteed success. When we step out, we're stepping out on faith that we're going to go ahead and put something out. And like Will Smith said, I'm just going to go ahead and do the best that I can and hope that it's good enough. So make sure you understand nothing is guaranteed in this game, let alone in life. If you're going to go ahead and exhibit your talents, you have to step out to find out. And while you're in the midst of finding out, you need to stand out. So find out what it is that's going to set you apart from everyone else, because there are tons of dudes that are out there who are my direct competition. Stefan being one of them. Donovan Cornetz is one. Eric Holloway is one. Rodney Salisbury is one. Damon Alum is one. There are a bunch of dudes that are out there. Brent is one of my is my competition. And what is it am I going to do that's going to make me stand out from all those different individuals? Keith David said it best. Yeah, your voice may be purple, but there's a whole lot of different shades of purple.
Wow.
So how do you get that purple to stand out? Let's look at it like now. Right now, there's a shade of a purple called Barney purple.
Wow. What is that? There's a lot of purple, I take it, right?
Yeah.
That is amazing. Donovan Cornetz, I had him on here. He is another individual out there with motivation and drive that I absolutely love. That's what I love about this profession. We all have each other's backs, and we all been through it, and we all go through it every day. And this is one reason I had this podcast, to talk to people, to know that, hey, we're going to get through crazy times. We're going to get through, the hard auditions. We're going to get through those days we feel like we can't do anymore. We're burnt out. I can't, but this is what I want to hear. And BZ Cullins, you are the best. Thank you so much for being on Behind the Audition podcast.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate it. And for all of your listeners out there, and now your viewers, keep it moving, keep it pressing, no stressing, count your blessings.
Love it. I love it. Thank you so much. You rock, man.
All right, my man.
For more information about BZ Cullins, check out his website at bzthevoice.com.
Thanks for listening in on Behind the Audition podcast, made possible by Hilton Productions. If you need a male or female voiceover, contact us at hiltonproductions.com. Hilton Productions, let our voices do the selling.